Fish fillet.
Fish fillet. Good morning.
Wow.
I mean, if you're gonna bring it, bring it.
Wow. Good morning, everybody.
Or you can get it like newscaster official.
Good morning, everybody. Danny Alvarez
Good
here and Gino Kalura from What Not to Do, episode numero 7.
Numero 7.
Actually, bro, this is actually pretty cool. I didn't think we'd make it past 1.
I didn't think we'd get it kicked off at all, but hey, here we are, episode 7.
What Not to Do, episode 7. Before we get started, we gotta say our thank yous.
Yes, thank you. Huge thank you to Startup Street.
As always.
Our sponsor pushing us forward. They do a phenomenal job. Check out their Facebook page. Jeremy's team is incredible, world class, and we're just very fortunate to have them in our corner.
Yep, and we have had inquiries as to other sponsorships. We're going to talk about that stuff. It's got to be the right person, right product, right team.
Right.
But we will talk about that. But
We certainly will.
because that's not what this is about. This is about you, what not to do. Thanks to hi mom, hi mama. You know I love you both.
Love you, mama.
Yeah, that's right. I get more inquiries daily.
Isn't it great?
It is great.
Isn't it
So,
great?
good morning, everybody. Today's topic of choice is,
Decisions.
what does that even mean?
Decisions. Gosh, man, where to start? So, I mean,
Make a decision, dude.
So yeah, and make a decision is exactly right. Right. So, when we think about what we go through on a daily basis, how many decisions do we make every single day?
Right.
Small, big, whatever. Small decisions, something as simple as, all right, I'm waking up, I'm getting out of bed, I'm going to wear X, I'm getting in my car, am I going to put my seatbelt on, am I not going to put my seatbelt on? Am I going to text this person back while I'm driving, am I not? Things like that, right? That happen every single day that, by the way, have massive consequences behind them, even though we do not perceive it that way. But I think at a bigger scale, big life decisions, like our ability to actually, how it is we go through the process and discern, should I go left or should I go right? And I can tell you, for me, that's not an easy path. It's not an easy thing to go through when you are making very robust life decisions that have some very serious consequences. So then the question is, how do we make those decisions?
All right, so I think this is actually a topic that you can break down into 2 separate categories. How do you make the decision going to left or right? How that weighs on your life. What do people think about it? What do you think about it? That kind of stuff. And then the other one is actually making a decision, being decisive. Too often in life, people refuse to jump because they get what we'll call analysis paralysis. All the what ifs. What are we going to do? What happens with this? The reality here is making a decision, right or wrong, move forward, and then learn from it. You fail, okay, we've talked about that before.
Yep.
It happens, but making the decision. Good morning, Sadie. Good morning, Maria Campos.
Good morning,
Great to see
dear.
you both.
Good morning, Miss Maria.
All right, let's start with number 1. Let's just talk about the decision process.
Right, so the decision-making process, right? So again, PhD button. Okay, all right. So this thing between our ears, the idea of being confused. Now, here's the crazy part, right? We live in a day and an age where there is just stimuli everywhere. We are constantly having to make decisions on a regular basis. Small ones. Do I click this? Do I hit that? Do I say yes? Do I say no? Right. So how does our brain deal with all of that? Well, we know clearly, we've talked about this too, right? We don't like being confused, right? But here's the question. When we are inundated with information every single day, more so than ever in the history of human beings, is there such a thing as the brain being burned out and not making the appropriate decision because we're making false assumptions? And the question is, where do we get our assumptions from?
Well, actually, that's really good. Just think about it. Like on a daily basis, we make 1,000,000,000 decisions. And it's funny, when I go to the gym,
You go to the
this guy who just found out how to spell gym for the first time in his life. He got that. Hey, Sadie, he got that married life going on.
Oh,
he got that married life
got some
going.
jokes just because you got the Mr. T starter pack.
Oh,
I got you, buddy. I got you.
So the reality is, at the gym, we get so tired of making decisions. I do that when I work out with Will or Sam or anybody, I literally just go and I don't want to make a single decision right now. Tell me what to do so I can do it. And so that actually parlays into life. We want other people to help us make our decisions, but at the end of the day, no one is in our spot. Nobody is in the position where they're going to weigh what's coming at you. They're going to weigh the family pressures are going to weigh the career pressures. So you can't punt on this.
No, man, you can't, right? And to your point, isn't there some comfort in not having to make any decisions?
Yes.
By the way, is a decision in and of itself.
Yes.
Right? But there is comfort in the idea of knowing I'm just going to go and do whatever, Fulano says or whatever Tony says. That's it. That's the direction. I don't have to think about it, right? But the problem is that we are constantly having to analyze. We are constantly having to make decisions, however small or big, every single day at a rate which is unprecedented, right? So having the ability to find something in your life where it's very clear, it's very simple. Here are the directions, go, right?
Okay, so this is a motivational thing. We are motivational speakers. We are like empowerment type people. We're inspired people. But when you're searching the web and YouTube, there are tons of people that are going to help you allegedly make your decisions, how to get out of bed, how to do this and that. But all of that is just noise. I would never sit here and tell somebody, this is what you got to do, this is how you got to do it. Only you can do that. We push you to the point where you can make a decision. That's what we want. We want you to make a decision, right, wrong, or indifferent. Just make one, but nobody can get you there except you. You've got to have the intestinal fortitude to go, I'm just going to go for it.
Which, by the way, so I think a large portion of this as well is, what are you feeding yourself every single day up here, right? Because what makes decisions? Clearly, it's a balance between emotion and logic, right? Okay.
Right.
And then if we're building assumptions every single day, because again, the brain doesn't like being confused. So if we are constantly assuming things, right, because we want to make sense of
Right.
what's happening around us so we can make the right decision, right? Which, by the way, certainty, we live in uncertainty. Every single day, I can't even tell you how many times Danny and I have conversations, business, personal, whatever. You just don't know the answer, right?
Yeah.
Hence the reason why you have to make a decision. But what are you making that decision
Look,
based off of?
how many times in the day do we go, I have no idea what I'm going to do next, but then all of a sudden the pressure comes, the time comes, and you have to make a decision. The difference between people
Yes.
that win and don't win are the ones that err on making a decision. Notice it's not err on making the right decision, because it is what not to do. You will make a ton of bad decisions. This is part of the process.
Here's the thing, right? Perfectionism, right? Everybody wants to make the perfect decision. Is it the right decision? Well, here's the thing, folks. Most folks who truly experience a level of success and happiness in their life, they're not perfectionists. They're not, right? And so what happens? It's all about setting your expectations for the decisions that you make and what the outcome is, right? To Danny's point, you just got to make the decision, right? And so when you're staying in that gray area of not making a decision, and then when you make an actual commit to it, right? Listen, whether it's the right one or wrong one, either way, I don't really believe there is a right or wrong. I think you're going to learn either way, right? And then learning in of itself is growth, right? And so when you're actually making that process or going through that process, and what it is you're taking in on a daily basis, and how it is you're reflecting that will influence you to make a decision left or right, be mindful of that. I know for me, listen, it makes a huge, huge difference in my life when I am going through and thinking about, okay, what am I going to entertain my time with? What discussions am I going to have with certain people? And who am I going to make a choice not to even interact with? Because you know what? I don't want their influence. I don't want their assumptions throwing a shadow or casting an influence on me.
Right. So I just got a text from someone that said, all right, Danny, I hear what you're saying, but how do I make the decision? How do I know what's right and what's wrong?
Right.
And my answer to that is, how do we know?
Right.
How do you know?
Right.
And how do you only will know by a cumulative experience base that you get from making good and consequently bad decisions.
Yes.
So, but there is a growth process that Gino was talking about. You can't continue to make the wrong decision and then go, you know what? It was just growth. Let me go back and do the thing that hurt me again. You know what I mean? That's insanity.
And listen, and it's a cliche saying, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
Right.
And so when we're thinking about it, to the person who sent you that question, here are my thoughts on that, right? There is a long-term benefit to a decision and a short-term benefit to a decision. It just depends. What are your circumstances? What are you seeking to achieve out of that decision? Because listen, you're going to make the wrong decision. It's going to happen. It's happened to all of us, right? And there are times when you make the quote unquote right decision, right? But what is that deciding factor? Who makes that judgment call? You do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a highly subjective and individualized thing. Look, let's talk business for a second. Well, clearly, if Danny and I, we own companies, right? If we make a bad decision, how is that going to be reflected, right? Lack of revenue, employee turnover, failure in marketing, branding, whatever the case is, that's a very clear indicator. But what comes along with that? Learning points, right? And so it's a question of perspective, personal life and personal decisions. Listen, relationships, however you choose to interact, what you say, what you don't say, what you do, what you don't do. Well, what's the ripple effect? What is the goal you're seeking to achieve? And that's what it comes down to goal setting. Where do you want to be and how do you want to get there?
Right. So your decisions, the choices you have to make will add up as building blocks to whether either you're successful in that goal achievement or you're not. At the end of the day, when you look back, I'm talking about the totality of your life. We've probably made more bad decisions than good ones.
Hands down.
But the thing is, the good ones have such a great impact that they carry you forward and you're successful. You have a good job, you have a good family, you have a good career, you know what I mean? But you just can't get caught in a bad decision. And the next thing you know, the outcome of that bad decision destroys you.
Oh, and here's the thing, freezing, right? And we see this, and everyone knows Danny and I come from the tactical world, right? The worst thing you can do, right, in some sort of altercation is freeze. Does it happen? Yeah, it does. Okay, I don't care who you are. At some point or another, it's happened, right? When you're thinking about life decisions, that moment where you freeze, right, and you don't have the ability to make a decision, left or right, move forward. Listen, some of the highly successful folks, like we mentioned earlier, they probably have 70 to 80%, right, of the knowledge they need to feel somewhat confident, right, in making a decision. But the thing is that they make it and they commit to it, right? And so whether it's right or wrong, I mean, Danny, being in the Army, right, and being in the infantry, when you were leading folks, the idea of you not making a decision, right, and being in that gray area of a stalemate, what happens to people around you?
That it literally destroys the entire mission. It stops everything in place, and it is the sign of somebody who should not be in a leadership role. And of course, this isn't about leadership, right? This is about you personally leading yourself. I guess it's about leadership.
It is absolutely
leading yourself.
Yes.
But in a group setting, when you're at the top and you are an indecisive person, you are the wrong person to be leading any sort of group except yourself until you get to the point where you can. So like for example, one of the things that we would teach privates in the Army is the why. We would teach them, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, this is who's doing it. But then we would teach them the why. This is why you're doing it. Because if everybody else in the unit got killed, that kid, that 18-year-old kid who was in high school 6 months ago could go, oh, I know why we're doing this. Let me make a decision that will give us a probability of mission success. Maybe or not, but that guy, that gal can now make a decision. So we've empowered everybody to make decisions within their scope and power. And that's what we really need you to do to progress your life moving forward.
And let's a quick shout out, Jay Canals. Good morning, brother. Beth Anderson. That is phenomenal, right? Your core values. That's exactly what do you represent. And most importantly, and Danny, we talk about your personal constitution. What do you stand for? Right. At the end of the day, what is your brand? And I don't mean it from a business perspective. What is the thing that when folks think of your name, what is that initial buzz? What is that pop? When they think of you, what do they think of? Right. And so more importantly, what do you think of yourself? Right. But going back real quick to Danny's point, listen, when you're in a leadership position, and let's take it down to more of a common denominator for everybody out there, right? Think of family, right? Being in a leadership role in family, right? If you don't make a decision as a father, as a mother, right? What happens? What does that portray? What's that ripple effect to your children, right? And so now, look, it's chaotic, right? There's no direction. Everything gets nuts. But when you can't make a decision for yourself and you freeze, that moment when you haven't been able to kind of analyze in a short amount of time, if I go left, this is what will happen. If I go right, this is what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, what are my immediate needs? But more importantly, what's the ripple effect of what that means a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And not to everybody else, but to me, right? And those who I directly influence around me. So I guess the whole gist is commit, right? Whatever it is, commit and be very sound. I know for me, the times where I've been kind of very wishy-washy, which has happened a lot, it's more chaos, right? Instead of being confident, doing my due diligence on one decision or the other, and then really analyzing, well, wait a minute, what's fueling my assumptions, right? What am I assuming about this decision? What am I assuming about that decision? And then how do I bring that back, reduce it down to a level that makes the most sense where I'm at in life at that particular time?
All right, so take a moment. Let's go back to the question. How do I know to make the right decision?
Yes.
You know. The reality is you know. You know when that guy is not the one you should be dating. You know when that job is not the job you should have. You know when that job is the one you should leave. You know when you're not doing the right thing for both your pocketbook, your credit score, whatever it is, you're buying something you're not supposed to buy. You know how you know? Your core. In your core, and then inside your head, you're fighting that person. And you're like, nah, and you're trying to convince yourself it's the wrong decision, but we make them all the time. We will ignore our core all the time and go, that little voice that says, Gino, don't do it. And Gino goes, no, but I'm hungry.
That's exactly
so I'm going to eat that extra dessert.
That's exactly right.
Right, C?
Oh.
You like how I wove that in?
Oh.
Bad decision making with
So,
meat slop
I
on
love
side.
it. Listen, Danny starts taking some protein shakes and kind of goes to the gym every now and again, and all of a sudden he's Mr. Personal Trainer.
I
Here
don't
we
know
go.
what to say.
Here
I'm
we
personal.
go.
I only train
Here we
myself.
go.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just
But you know what?
You don't know what a weight bench is.
So, but to Danny's point, right? At the end of the day, when we're thinking about what it all means and how do you know if it's the right decision or not, it boils down to confidence.
Yeah.
Truthfully, right? Like confidence in yourself that you have the knowledge and the ability that you have done your due diligence, right? And what does due diligence mean? Well, that means what are your assumptions? Where have you gotten those assumptions from, right? Are you trying to figure out the perfect choice? Because listen, let's break that bubble right now. There is no perfect choice. Every single decision has an opportunity cost, right?
Yeah, but the thing, okay, confidence. I'm
Yes.
with you.
Yes.
I'm 100%. There's nothing greater than seeing someone with confidence.
Right.
I love watching people dance. I love seeing someone who doesn't fit this traditional mold, is like sexy, beautiful, whatever,
Right.
own the room. I love that. But when we're talking about decisions, you're talking about honesty, right?
Yes.
But honesty with yourself. You've got to shred it, right? You got to shred down to what is the core of who you are and go, is this good for me? Is this right for me or my family? Is this right for me and my career? If the answer is yes, you don't ignore that voice, because that voice is literally the one that got, you're not dumb. You don't need an education to know this. You don't have to be a PhD to know this.
That's right.
You were born with it.
It's
you
innate.
just ignore it.
Yes. And the question is, why do we ignore it? Right? Because we are easily influenced. We really are. We are social creatures, and we're creatures of habit, by the way, right? And so, especially when you are entering into a realm of new types of decisions, right? A new chapter in your life, something different. So you will always revert back to conditioned behavior patterns when you are uncertain. Why? Because you have a confidence in those behavior patterns. Now, the question is, do those behavior patterns actually apply to this new chapter that you're in? I don't know.
A PhD,
Maybe yes, maybe no.
You know why we ignore it? We ignore it because it's hard.
Right.
Making the right decision is often harder than making the easy, lazy one. Look, does it suck to go to the gym? It's horrific. This week has been horrific.
Well, especially when you're like 80 years old, like anybody.
84, but who's counting? You know what I mean? Who's big deal? But I still I'll mention. So, but when you to get better is a struggle. It takes work to get better educationally. You got to go to school, and if you're working and you got 3 kids and you got to go at night, there's got to be a sacrifice. It sucks. So if you're going to make a decision to eat less, lose weight, it sucks. Life comes with sacrifice. And the thing is, it's not about making the decision. It's about being honest whether you are willing to pay the price to get what it is you want. So I guess it's not about a decision. It's about whether you're willing to go through the suck.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
And that's exactly. Big shout out real quick to Kelvin. Kelvin, good morning, brother. Jake and Alice, hey, thank you for tuning in, brother. We love you, man.
Thank you.
But you're right, going through the suck. So there's a price, right? And so you got to cash in, right? Cash in and cash out. So the question is, whatever that decision is in your life, depending on where you're at, what does it mean to you, right? If it's something that is, something that we take for granted, and I'm going to use the seatbelt analogy again. You make a decision every morning, right, to get into your vehicle. When you get into your vehicle, you have a choice. Do you put your seatbelt on or do you not? In your mind, you've done it so many times, or you haven't done it so many times that it's just second nature, no big deal. I'm conditioned to do it. But if you don't put it on, what are the ramifications? God forbid you get into an accident, right? It goes into the whole being of what are the choices and are you willing to deal with the repercussions and the consequences? And here's the difference, folks, resiliency. How resilient are you to push through that adversity and that challenge that comes along with a decision that you have made? And unfortunately, I do truly believe that we are living in a time where there is a tremendous lack of resiliency in folks. And I think it boils down to it's an inundation, right? We are so stressed out. There's constant pressure to be perfect. Listen, even in the business world, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be efficient. It's got to be effective. We get it. We know. But where in that mix of things do you actually enjoy living life and getting to a level of simplicity, right? Because listen, when life gets simple, your decisions become A or B. Not AA, BB, 2A, 2B, 3C. No.
It's super easy.
Yes.
We complicate it. Like keeping it simple is always the way to go. And in business and in life and in tactics, usually the simple answer is always the right answer. We get to it first and then we go, yeah, but, and then all of a sudden we tactically plan our way out of the simple thing when the simple thing was the right answer. Whether that's in your marriage, whether you should stay in it or not, whether you should take care of your kid or not, whether you should go in your career or not. It's always the simple answer. But again, we go back to ignoring our core voice. And that core voice is right 9 times out of 10. When I was a business attorney, people would be like, Danny, I made a bad decision. I was like, but you knew when you got into that deal before you signed the contract, it wasn't good, right? And you're like, you know what? I knew it and I still signed it. Yep. So like when you talked about, to a girl who's like having a bad relationship with a guy, you're like, but I knew he was a bad guy, but I still wanted to try it. I knew she was going to be trouble, but I still wanted to try it. We ignore our core voice because we think we're smarter than Mother Nature. We think we're smarter than the powers that be, and we're not. Keep it simple literally is always the answer.
And by the way, folks, when you look at like big corporations, right? And to Danny's point, we think we're smarter than our emotions. Right. And so here's the thing about it. We all know emotions can play tricks on us. And, sometimes they get out of control, out of hand. We get all that. Right. But here's the thing. If you think of Super Bowl, right, and the commercials that you see during Super Bowl, my question to you is this. Are those commercials highly intellectual? What do? They stir up what? Your emotion. Right. Because big companies know that that's a major influencer. Right. And so to Danny's point, if you think that this is going to trump this without a tremendous amount of discipline, without a tremendous amount of being able to embrace the suck, because it is not easy, right? It is much easier for us to follow what is happening emotionally because that's where we want to go. There's an immediate relief. There's an immediate benefit. Yes, this is what I've been waiting for, and it's wonderful. And oh my gosh, here comes the tidal wave that's going to come crashing. Why? Because this thing up here, you play the trick on. Right? You absolutely know. But when you go through the life course, it's a constant battle, right? Logic, emotion, back and forth. And it's confusing, right? But it's a question of discipline and confidence and who it is that you are and what you stand for.
People are like water. Okay. Water finds its path of least resistance and it goes there. It doesn't fight the wall. It just looks for the tiniest crack in the wall and it goes through it. That's how people are. If you really want to count on people, you know that most people will break down. They will give up. They're not going to do what's hard because it's easy. It's the path of least resistance.
That's right.
That's why we got diet sodas. That's why we got fat-free this. That's why the diet industry blossoms in January because everyone is going to do that then. And then guess what? They're counting on you to give up at the end of the day because they know that you will. The decision, therefore, is yours to not give up. The decision is yours to then embrace the suck, like Gino says, and move through it. But guess what? Only you can do that. Only you can make that decision.
And that
has to be a fight that you win inside.
That's exactly right. And so like any good fighter, right? Anyone who knows anything about training like that, listen, everything matters. How you sleep, what you eat, what you entertain mentally. Are you psychologically already defeated before you step into the ring? So when you think of life, every single day, the stuff that you are feeding yourself, right, both physically and psychologically, are you equipping yourself to make the best decisions, right? Because all of it matters. How many of us have woke up after, like you had a huge steak and mashed potatoes and mac and cheese, it's a bunch of junk. You wake up the next morning and you feel like total crap, right? Why? Well, let me ask you, how much stuff on a daily basis do you feed yourself psychologically and emotionally that perhaps is not the healthiest and can influence how it is you make decisions? Because guess what? We all do it. It's everywhere. So are you making the right choices to set yourself up to understand analytically A and B
Right.
as far as the decisions, and being able to push forward and commit to one or the other and have the resiliency to push through the challenges?
Absolutely. So looks like we're at the end of our time.
How?
Am I right?
I mean, we're
Yeah.
we're about there.
Yeah,
we're about there.
So this is another show. It's about decisions. It's our decision to limit this show to this amount of time. I'm
It is.
sorry about that. We'll get it going a lot longer.
We will.
Clearly, we have a lot to say. We're going to end up bringing on guests soon.
We are.
That kind of
We
stuff.
are. We're
We'll
looking
explain
forward to
it, but we love you guys. Thank you very, very, very much for the support. We appreciate everybody who's watching, especially those that just joined us. Thank you for joining us. This is Danny, Gino, What Not to Do, episode 7, Making Good Decisions.
And make it a great day, guys.
We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Success. I love it. Love these discussions. Oh my goodness, bro. Can you believe that I don't know how to? There we go. Shut it off. Okay. All right, YouTubers. We'll see you guys next time.